China's economy is getting slammed by the coronavirus outbreak, even though signs indicate that the spread may now be easing in China. Joining us for the latest on China is Allison Sherlock with Eurasia Group. So, Allison, really people are trying to figure out, has the tide turned? Are things getting better in China? Can we trust the data? What is the state right now in China as it relates to coronavirus?
Thank you for having me. So you're absolutely right that over the last week, sentiment has improved somewhat as new diagnosed case numbers are getting lower every day. But there are a couple of points that the leadership brought up in their latest meeting in Beijing that show they're still concerned about a couple of key risks. One is that there's a risk of a rebound as more and more people return to work. The second is that the economic impact isn't going to be felt evenly throughout China. For example, in Hubei province, offices and factories are still shut down for the most part until March 10th, which means another 2 weeks of an economic stall. Whereas in other parts of the country, migrant workers are coming back to work, and recent data from the Ministry of Industry shows that at least 30% of small enterprises have returned to work over the past week.
Is there anything you saw in the market close today that would suggest we have reached a near-term bottom?
It's so hard to say, especially because different companies are going to be feeling the shocks differently. Obviously, we've seen how technology companies such as smartphone manufacturers, which really have a really tight timeline for production, are really struggling with these supply chain disruptions, whereas other multinationals have been able to manage them by shifting supply around different parts of the world. But ultimately, the companies that are going to be hit the hardest by the outbreak are the domestic, smaller-sized enterprises, which the government has rushed in to rescue with hundreds of billions of dollars of new credit access to help them sort of tide over this tough time.
And Allison, just thinking about the situation in China right now, there's certainly the pressure for the economy to get going again because they'd had a slowing economy already last year. That was already something that she was under pressure about. And then there's how they handled the initial outbreak of the virus. And just in your view, what kind of is the standing right now between leadership and Chinese citizens more broadly? Because I don't exactly feel like everyone in China is fine with how this situation was handled. And as it continues to repair itself, certainly there's going to need to be some answers.
You're definitely right that people in China have definitely lost trust. So you've seen some hesitancy, especially among white-collar workers, to return to work and reluctance to reopen schools, things like that. So it's really going to be tough, I think, for local officials to try and maintain the strict standards for diagnostics as we sort of enter the economic recovery phase in parts of the country. And I think officials, it's still an uphill battle for them.
And then just on that point, last year, certainly with the trade fight, I don't know if you would agree or not, but it seemed like it was one of the more crucial events of Xi's tenure as president there. Would you view the coronavirus as perhaps his most serious, crisis that he has endured as president in China?
I think that the coronavirus crisis definitely is because it highlights a lot of the domestic weaknesses that he has, particularly with governance issues, for example, control over local officials. We saw with the early mishandling of the crisis that the central government really wasn't in control, and Xi took the extra step of installing his own people in Hubei province and Wuhan. And there are other social issues that he clearly has failed to address fully, like inadequacies in the healthcare system. We've seen a lot of people fail to access quality care throughout this time.
Allison Sherlock with the Eurasia Group. Thanks so much.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.